Hi, Nick. How are you? How are
Hi,
you?
Michael. Thank you for having me.
Happy birthday for the other day.
Oh, thank you. That's nice of you to say.
Big 3-7.
No,
3-3-8.
we're the same age.
Yeah, we're not at the moment. This is the best week of my year because when you're a lot older than me.
I really dislike the logical leap that people take when they decide that they only get older once a year. Our age gap never changes. We are the same difference in age all year round. And when people are like, oh, a whole new year older today, I'm just like, no, that's not changed. That's not how it works.
Well, it does. If you're feeling out of form, it works like that.
Well, yes, but that hasn't just suddenly like banked up and you've like hit the jackpot and boom, a year.
I've hit the jackpot.
So for 6 days, you get to be,
The younger man.
or
The
7 days,
young,
I suppose. Well, yeah, 7 days.
hotter, younger man in this
Okay,
relationship.
and you just want to luxuriate in it.
I don't want to I love luxuriating in anything. You know me.
Yeah,
I don't
you love to
luxuriate
wallow.
enough. Oh, I love to wallow too. What
You
is?
love a wallow, you love a soak, you love a luxuriate.
I like to effervesce emotionally.
FFS.
Yeah,
That's nice.
and bath-wise,
You like a bath bomb.
emotional bath bomb.
Isn't it crazy that that's a name that we use? Like, what if we took a war weapon and just made it cutesy, like something you'd want at the home?
Yeah,
And that's going to be a thing that we're going to sell. We're going to sell something that's reminiscent of a murder, but in a fun way.
yeah. Well, like, you could have like a bath suicide bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An improvised bathing device.
This is quite so. Just right off the bat, real quick rec. I went and saw this movie called Warfare yesterday.
Okay.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Alex Garland, who did Ex Machina, Civil War.
Civil War.
It's got a real war fix at the moment. But this is one of the great 5-star movie as far as I'm concerned. It's just like it's a 12-hour period just set in this one kind of shootout situation that they had with some of the troops in Afghanistan in 2006. Loved it so much.
True story.
True story. Hyper realistic, incredible performances. And the start of this movie, I was like, I would like to, part of me wants to join the army.
What?
Yeah. I've always had like a thing, like I'm like, I wouldn't mind being in the Air Force or something for a little bit. And then this movie went on for 10 minutes and I was like, holy shit. I would not last a second. Like
I was
not
going
even
to say, like, if that's the takeaway that you got from the movie, I'm sure that is not what Alex Garland intended.
No, I mean there are still appealing aspects of it, but there's like this romanticism that I have that completely does not match up with reality. And even just apart from like seeing blood all the time, just that like there's so many verbal instructions that they give each other. I'm just imagining myself in this like highly intense situation in the Middle East or something, and
Yeah.
The lieutenant says, all right, Michael, I need you to go over there on the right, and then Frank's going to come in from the left, and I'd just be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Can you I'm a visual
Let's just
learner
slow
actually.
down.
Can you I just wouldn't last a second. Like,
Sorry, I know you're on a schedule, but we're going to have to really walk through this step by step.
yeah.
Yeah. Is it possible that you just want to wear a uniform?
Yeah, and just hang out with boys.
Just with the boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. No women allowed.
No chicas. No chicarellos.
We don't need to keep attempting to make that a thing. You said that again, and it doesn't exist.
I also watched this, while I was talking about war, watched this new documentary on how they found bin Laden. Just come out on Netflix. It's called like The Manhunt of bin Laden. That's fantastic. The CIA, when they decided on
Central Intelligence Agency.
Thank you. When they decided that they were going to go ahead with they didn't, Obama was president, I think it was like 2010. They didn't have 100% certainty that Osama bin Laden was in this compound. So they just kind of guessed. And the analogy that they were using in the, what's the war room, they call it, whatever, you know that room?
The Situation Room?
Yeah, that one. Was that, they had better intelligence that Iraq had WMDs than they did that Osama bin Laden was in this compound.
Wow, well, that was a famously not accurate guess.
Exactly, and they went ahead with it anyway. And the CIA actually the soldiers had 3 weeks to prepare, because once they decided, they were waiting for the moon cycle to go dark so that the night was darker and not radiating
not
light.
illuminated. Yeah.
And then they knew what the outside of the compound looked like, but they didn't know what the inside looked like. So they built this kind of modular set based on the outside of the compound. But every time they did the rehearsal run through of, going in and trying to capture and kill bin Laden, the house would change inside. And so they had every time it was like a variation.
To get like a practice of, what might happen.
And then I had no idea that they were meaning to they had 2 choppers. And I think it was in Abbottabad, which is, anyway, they had to go over Pakistani airspace, and the Pakistanis had shot down. They didn't inform the Pakistani government that they were going after bin Laden, because they didn't, it could have gone either way. So they had to cross the space. And
Abbottabad is in Pakistan, so that's probably what you.
So Abbottabad was where bin Laden was found.
Yeah.
But anyway, they had to, and then one of the helicopters almost crashed, on the compound. I had no idea, because they were meant to be dropped from the roof, and the first helicopter kind of almost crashed in the yard, or right outside the yard, and then the other one came in. They had to go in from the ground, which they didn't plan for at all. So
yeah,
anyway, weird start, wasn't it?
I'm just indulging your enthusiasms, and I support you in furthering yourself in terms of learning and pursuing interests and that sort of stuff. But
that's a fancy way of saying wasn't listening and don't care about this.
Listening. Welcome to Deep Foot, everybody. Thank you so much for being here in this episode, which is number 254. For those of you playing along at home, this is a podcast in which we talk about the things that matter, and we just want to include you in those conversations. Sitting through the internet with me, my friend Michael. Hello.
What's up? What's up, bitches?
Unnecessary. And my name is Nick. Hello. Hi, Nick. Hi. How you doing?
There's been a real cold snap that really caught me off guard last week.
Oh.
Wasn't prepared.
Having to put an extra blanket on in bed.
Yeah. Yep. Lauren bought a seat warmer thing for her. It's it flops over the chair, and so it's getting real serious in this house,
Things are getting serious.
Yeah.
We're buying seat warmers. We're discussing the weather.
Well, we don't have any heating in the house, you see. We don't have any heat.
You don't have any heating in the house. What does that mean?
There's no heating. Apart from...
There's no electric heaters, air conditioners.
Well, there's a gas, little oil heaters that we bought ourselves, but there's inducted heating under the floorboards and stuff, but it's not switched on, and we can't get it switched on.
Can't you switch it on?
No.
You can't get it switched on?
No, because we're in a tricky situation here, because we have a landlord, but we don't technically have a landlord, and he's a family friend of Lauren's family, and it's a whole thing. So we don't have any say. We can't do anything because it's too,
But you're paying him money.
Yes.
Isn't it against the law to lease a house that doesn't have heating?
We're not even on the lease. It's a whole thing, dude. Don't get me started.
This is a thing. Yeah. Well, that is cold. That's unfortunate.
It's an old house too, because it really.
Yeah, I was going to say it wouldn't be well insulated or double glazed or anything.
No, it's frosty as. It's frosty as.
It's frosty as.
Oh, it's filtered, bro. How are you? How are you going? How was your birthday? Do you want me to sing you happy birthday?
No. I want you to sing the first 3 notes.
No, Hayalita. Yeah, Ukrainian. Didn't expect that.
Perfect. Thank you. So you can speak it. I had a lovely birthday, thank you. It was this Friday just past. We're recording on Sunday. It was a beautiful day. It was 20 degrees. It was like clear blue skies. It was sunny. It was just very beautiful autumny vibes. And I was meant to be doing a bit of work and, doing a semi-normal day. And I just sort of got to the afternoon and I was like, fuck it, it's my birthday, I tend to work through public holidays and on Mondays and things because I feel like I don't deserve it. But I just kind of let myself have it. So I went and walked the dog at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and soaked up some rays and just had a very lovely afternoon, and then went out for dinner with friends and had some drinks and good food and bants, and it was lovely.
I'm assuming you mean sun rays and not multiple men called Ray.
Well, I don't kiss and tell.
Or so can tell.
Yeah.
That sounds nice.
So
cocktails on the beach,
nice.
huh? Very Sex in the City of you.
It wasn't on the beach, but it was in Sumner, which is a beach suburb. So it was the vibe. It was nice.
Excellent.
And then, just yesterday, quite busy, sociable as well. Casey's aunt is in town from Taiwan, so we've been having repeated catch-ups and playing tour guide a little bit, and went out to lunch and going over there again for dinner tonight and all that kind of thing. So I actually just sat down here a moment ago, having just quickly ducked out to walk Goose again, and thought, oh God, I feel a bit like I could have a nap.
Well, now's not a good time, actually. Hold on. Just hang in there, buddy.
That's all good. I had spent the week in bits and pieces preparing this quiz night for the pod, and I am halfway there, but I'm not all the way there. So I was hoping that I would be ready for this today, but I am not. So we are just going to have to improv a completely different episode, and next time we will have our quiz night.
So I'm actually not sure how you're imagining this quiz night to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, we can talk about it then, or we can talk about it now. I don't know that.
I would like you to tell me verbally now, if you can.
Okay. So all I'm going to do is I'm making questions, and I'm going to put together maybe 5 or 6 rounds, see how it goes. And then I'm just going to read out my questions to you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make up a Google form. And anyone who's playing along at home can just click on the link, go to the Google form, fill out the answers as we listen along to the pod, and then submit it at the end of it. And, honor system, of course, but we've got a very honorable set of listeners. And then we can all just, see who's the best at the quiz.
So I strongly suspect that this is an opportunity for you to make me look silly. Is that correct?
It's not going to be a traditional quiz night.
So this is going to be designed to make me look
that
like
might
a
be
fool?
to your advantage. No,
because when we initially talked about this, I was also going to write questions, right?
Yeah, but then I asked whether you wanted to participate or what kind of, vibe for the episode it would be if we were both just asking questions. And I thought that it would be more interesting to actually listen to if one of us was attempting to answer them, not just both of us throwing questions into the dark for 40 minutes.
And that person was me because...
Yes, that would be more comedic.
I'm more of a goose, okay.
Yes, I would have just been extremely competitive.
Yeah, no one would want to listen to that, you're right. Yeah. All right, well, let's do that.
Yeah.
Are there going to be categories that I get to pick from?
The categories, the first one's geography.
I like geography.
Sorry, the first one's history, these kind of things. But, a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. One of my frustrations with the classic pub quiz is that so many of the questions are skewed towards really old shit or really boring mainstream crap, and I'm just not
they do the music round and it's all Dua Lipa and you're like, who?
Or even it's fucking Hotel California and stuff. Yeah. It's just like, come on, come on. So let's update this. Let's get this biz modern, and let's make it more, aligned with my interests. So it's just a quiz, everyone likes a quiz, grab a pint or something you like, sit back and, think of a funny team name, and let's just have some fun. Let's just quiz it out.
Yeah. Quiz on my face. That's going to be my name.
That was your classic.
Just real quick, just because you said the word history.
Uh-huh.
And we were talking about the war before, you see.
Uh-huh, yeah.
I'm feeling myself, I'm wondering if you do too. You know that classic thing is as men get older, they start to get really into war? I'm really starting to feel this slide into like being really interested in war. Like the other day, like Lauren walked in and I was just like in episode 3 of a 6-part series on the Cold War. And she's like, is this a joke? And I'm like, this is what I want. My brain wants this now. Do you feel that at all?
I don't think that I've quite got to history yet. I struggled a bit to find the interest in the humanities at school, and history at my school in particular was famously dry with like an uninteresting lecturer. So I just had no chance of connecting with anything. Right. And I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I've definitely felt my brain shift non-fiction. Like growing up, I was very much like a fiction reader, a sci-fi reader, a fantasy reader, that sort of thing. And increasingly that is giving way to, non-fiction stuff or, biographies or science stuff or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that has shifted, but I'm not quite at so tell me about the Roman Empire phase of it, which might still be coming.
Yeah, probably. I wonder what that is. I think it's like, it must be something to do with just, I don't know, getting older and kind of realizing your maybe it's like an existential thing. You're kind of putting yourself in kind of the broader timeline of time, or like of history. And I guess it's also like, even just watching this war movie yesterday, I was like, I really felt a real strong sense of gratitude to like the troops, and I like really did, and like even just seeing like what they, because it was a hyper realistic depiction of a war situation. Even just thinking about like our ancestors. I mean my ancestors are all over the place. They fought in so many different wars, and where they were conscripted, and like just really have a really strong appreciation for that kind of sacrifice now.
Yeah. It is actually something in my family history. So my granddad, I'm gonna slightly muddle this up. I'm pretty sure that my dad's dad was too young to fight in World War II. He was maybe like 7 or 8 or something like that.
That's too young.
But his older brother did get conscripted. And so he'd gone through life with a fascination and a presence. It was something that was very impactful to him, but he'd missed out on perhaps the feeling of being able to serve or participate. And so he carried that forward, and he wrote a couple of books in his later years of life about airmen and people in South Australia who had served and fought, and right up to his to his dying days, basically, he was researching servicemen of South Australia, and uncovered from like the Historical Society and those kind of things, evidence of people who had served but who had not been had their names
credited,
recorded, and credited on the war memorial. So he found a bunch of people who had served from South Australia and had been unrecognized, and submitted it to the powers that be. They went off and verified, oh yes, these people did in fact serve, and they etched the names onto the war memorial on North Terrace as a result of my granddad's work.
I remember you telling me this.
Super cool.
Yes, very cool.
That sort of passion clearly was a through line in his life, and I can't say that I have the same knowledge, or that fascination perhaps hasn't hit me yet, but I do remain appreciative of his interest in it and his love of, what those people did and honoring that.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will come later. And your dad must have a bit more of a sense of that stuff now,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was thinking. I saw this movie last night with my friend Steph, and we were talking about, how, especially maybe to our generation, the perception of people, like, so say you meet someone and they say, I'm in the defense force, right?
Yeah.
I think there's probably an opinion of that type of person. Maybe I'm just speaking to the people that are in my social circles and have been for, the type of people that I hang around with. That it's kind of like almost a it's like, oh, you're in the army, oh, okay, like you're I don't know, you're a gun, maybe you like violence or something like that, or you're willing to or patriotic or something like that. Like patriotism is not necessarily seen as a virtuous thing, as a virtuous trait. And there's kind of a bit of a, for lack of a better word, like a bit of a repulsion to that, maybe. I certainly have felt that in the past, in my 20s. I met like a couple of people. I don't remember if you remember, I don't know if you remember, but remember Hannah, our friend Hannah, she dated a guy briefly who was in the army, and he was around for a bit. And he was always
that's vaguely familiar.
He talked about how like he was like really into it and really into guns and stuff like that. And I remember it must have been when you were hanging out, because I remember having like a deep conversation with him and just leaving feeling like, oh, like people who are in that kind of position kind of a bit weird to me. And I did think after seeing this movie that like a lot of those people, I have a new respect, as I was saying before, for that type of commitment and sacrifice. And people that go and serve in, Afghanistan, wherever they've served, in kind of a serious situation, must come back and talking to someone like me and you probably as well, like who have kind of office jobs or their work exists on a computer screen, they must just think, oh, you're not serious. This is not serious stuff.
Yeah, this doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, because what they do what really matters. And you can have, I know there's complicated, it's a complicated scenario. It's a complicated role to take on. And you do have to be kind of wired a certain way. It's kind of like people who, join the police force, I guess, as well. But I do feel the older I get, the more respect I have for those people who devote themselves. It's also weird that, police kind of have this public perception of, it's a little bit, they don't have a great, across the board, they don't have a great public perception. But like firefighters, everyone loves a firefighter.
Well, I mean, you can't equivalent. They're not the same.
I guess
firefighters
they're enforcing the law.
Exist to put themselves in danger to protect you and the community.
Yeah, true.
There's no like political instance where they're like, oh, they're only helping the white people's houses. Like there's no fucking political issues that they can stumble into.
Tell that to the Palisades.
Well, yes. But there is no, judgment calls they're making effectively. Everyone trusts that they are doing an incredibly selfless, risky thing for the betterment of society. That's why they get held up on a platform.
That's true.
When it comes to police officers, there is a whole lot more subjective choices that an officer can make moment to moment about who they do and do not, pursue for a crime, how they enforce those laws, where leniency is given or not given, and then structurally what kind of crimes are even on the books. There's a whole lot more politics in and around that area.
Yeah, there's a widely varying degree of discretion that could fluctuate widely amongst police officers, even to like, oh, you crawled over a stop line and now I'm giving you a ticket. So there's this, if you get one of those, you can go, fuck cops,
Yeah, and where are those people parked up? What suburbs are they sitting there watching stop lights? There's so many like factors there where you don't have to pull back the curtain too much in like the American policing system, for instance, to find the institutional like racism and problems with how that's been instituted. And to be fair to Australia and New Zealand, I don't think that the accusations are that they behave as poorly as some of those worst examples over there. Certainly not with like cop killings and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the as in killings at the hands of cops. The thing that is interesting, I think, if we're saying that firefighters are not, deserving of that same level of hatred or scrutiny as police, because they are more,
sexy,
heroic, and sexy. There's no policeman calendars, I'll tell you that much. The comparison, though, to the military is interesting because there is a public expectation that service is appreciated when it comes to the military, and not necessarily in the same way. No one says thank you for your service to a police officer, right? It is interesting, the differences there when there, I think, are a little bit more aligned between those two career paths. Police and military have a certain similarity that police and firefighters don't, right? Like there is weapons training, there is, called to the scenes of trouble, disaster, violence. So it is interesting that there is perhaps more generosity given to the military than there are police forces.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that police do, because it'd be so scary. Like, have you ever been paintballing?
I have, yeah.
I mean, imagine just walking into a scenario that, I mean, I don't know. I feel like they get a bad rap. Even the what was the defund the police thing? It was, I mean, yeah, it's just.
I mean, the defund the police thing is a specifically American context, right? Because they get fucking billions of dollars and they get military gear, right? Like it's people with like mini tanks. And I don't think that the police should have tanks and fucking crazy military offcuts, So I think a lot of the concern there was, why are you spending that money in that system when there are potentially more effective ways to improve a community?
Sure.
The Australian context, I don't think that there's that much call for defund the. That doesn't feel like a thing that I really saw much discussion of here. Is that?
I'm not. It's a little bit blurry, that whole time period, but
So I have a friend who went off, and like a school friend that went off and joined the Navy, and went away and immediately sort of cut contact, and it was a bit of a surprise for me because she seemed very smart and. Not that, those people aren't smart, but seemed like she could have gone on to any number of careers. And I don't think I would have predicted that joining the Defense Forces was one of them.
Yeah.
And the thing that's surprising to me, I guess, in the Australian context is that, we're not at immediate military threat, right? It's not like we're in South Korea or whatever and we're surrounded by war powers,
existential threats on a daily basis,
or Taiwan or any of these places. So the choice to do it really comes from a different place, like I guess than nationalism necessarily. It has to be a little bit more servitude, right? But I do find it sort of hard to wrap my head around, because to me it feels like you are giving away some of yourself, right? Like I don't know that I could make that choice, because it would feel like I am handing over agency to a nameless kind of
mission,
organization or mission, without the full context to make choices of my own volition, right?
Right.
Like that requires a degree of trust in a
Yeah.
system that I don't know I inherently have, that I would need to feel like it was earned.
Exactly. And I mean, the government could change, and it's not your job to question the broader intention of what you're doing, and that would be very, very hard to stomach. You know, it's like, I don't agree with this. Well, it's not your job to agree with this. It's your job to execute whatever the directions come from the top.
Yeah.
That's very.
And to be fair, a lot of the work that they do, I mean, I don't think she's ever seen combat or anything. I'm pretty confident that 100% of what she's done would have been some degree of humanitarian work, right?
Yeah, clerical.
Turning up to somewhere that's just had a flood and, doing things, or, whatever it is. So,
yeah,
that is service, right?
Yeah.
But I think it... And I'm not saying that I wish that she was in danger, or that there was more violent or dangerous situations that they were called to, but it does for me change a little bit, perhaps, the expectation of a public's appreciation for that job, if what you're doing is humanitarian work through the military versus defending our country from invasion military, right? So,
well, it depends on how much scope there is to actually change your trajectory within the military. Like, as far as I know, you probably don't have that much control over where you're placed.
Let me just try and enunciate this concept properly here. So, if you are in America and 9/11's happened and there's a war that's broken out and you're enlisted and sent overseas to hunt down the people that attacked your country, right? That feels like a service that the public owes you a debt of gratitude for. And if you're Ukrainian and fighting on the fronts to stop Russia from seizing your land, that is service for the country. Mm. And if you are going over on a boat to help unload supplies for a village in Indonesia that got flooded, that's really admirable, and that's not something that I've done, but I don't know that it's different to what you could do if you were signed up as a humanitarian officer, or for an NGO, or are there other paths there that allow that same sort of work to be done? And therefore, what level of public appreciation should be there for that kind of defense work? Do you see what I'm getting at? Is that is that the same level of service as someone fighting in open conflict?
Well, the way I see it, and the way I think the government would see it, is that it's all facets of that, even the humanitarian work and the combat work, are all for the greater good. So they're all kind of, you're part of this bigger machine, and it's all kind of part of the same. And the tricky thing is that you might not personally agree with all parts of the operations of that machine, but if you're joining the Defence Force out of a sense of patriotism or pride in your country and the freedom that your country has or doesn't have, then I would imagine that you would kind of frame it like that in your head, where we're all cogs working towards one goal. It's not really. It's less of an individualistic framing and more of a group, collective kind of thing.
That's fair. I wonder. I mean, I'm sure that part of brand Australia is being seen showing up in places and helping people, right? Like, that helps the reputation of the nation on the international
optics,
stage,
the global
right?
optics, yeah.
If Australians show up, alongside their allies in times of need, that's how bonds and economies and connectedness is formed. If Australians show up after disasters and help to fight the fires in LA, or help to, clean up after the tsunami in Bali or, whatever, then you are spreading brand Australia, right, in a positive way. That is something that should be, that is a benefit that is reaped by all the citizens of that country.
Definitely.
So,
but the other side of that is that, it is strategic at the end of the day. It's like you want to have footholds in areas where it's kind of advantageous for you to have a foothold there. I mean, Indonesia's definitely one of those.
I mean, Nauru, right? Like that's something
Nauru.
where the Australian machine is now taking an ask from a country as a it's given on one hand and now it's asking for something with the other, right? Like
Exactly.
So we are exercising some of that political and military power too.
But then the other side of this, it's a three-sided coin, by the way.
It's three hands, yeah.
Is preventative in terms of like if we're viewing China as a potential threat and an aggressor, and trying to predict what they might do, and they have shown moves where they kind of, it looks like they might, if they had the opportunity, they might take advantage of that. And a lot what you were saying before about it may not feel necessary for Australia to being a nation that's not necessarily, doesn't have that many enemies, in the same way that America might have. It's also possible that if we didn't have that solid military infrastructure there in place, that we could be exposed to more threats. The fact it's preventative, as well. So that's.
And there is also, I guess, a big brother thing as well, where Australia is the largest economic and geographic entity in this corner of the world, right? And do we owe to our neighboring countries, the smaller countries, including New Zealand, but including all of, like the Pacific Islands and all these other places, some degree of protection, right? Like, is that one of our duties as the larger countries, is to be prepared for and ready to assist the neighbors too for stability?
Totally. Yeah. Don't you think it's just insane that we have, I know we stole it. Well, you stole it. My ancestors didn't really do anything. But it's just insane that we have just this whole fucking continent and we don't do a lot with it. Like, it's kind of nice, but it's just like crazy just the amount of space Australia has and where it has, it's just, it doesn't really make any sense.
It is enormous, but you understand why there's no one in the middle.
I guess Russia's kind of the same, and Mongolia, I guess.
It does also make me think about the Greenland thing, right? Where that country has such sincere militaristic value because of its
position,
location, right? And its sole position as the place to detect anyone coming over towards the US, right? You understand why Trump is obsessed with it.
No, America did have a stake in that, in the 40s or something, and it was given to the Danes after that. It's not the craziest idea that Trump's ever had.
Well, that's definitely true because he's had some fucking shockers, but just returning to the idea of the people though, the ones who serve, I wonder if it is unfair the way that I think I and other people perhaps see military service or defence force service here in Australia, because it is so coloured by the depictions of the military overseas and in America in particular. It is very common in our media and in our news to see what the American military style is. There's a lot of military industrial complex shit going on in the films, in your Top Guns and your war on TV, all of this American centric stuff, which often centers moral ambiguity as the thrust of the narratives, right? People put into situations that go bad, people where the the higher ups don't understand and they're asking me to do this thing and, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I can't help but wonder how much of that, defense forces in places like Australia or New Zealand or otherwise look at it and go, oh, fuck, you're making us look like absolute psychos.
Yeah.
And that a significant proportion of the people who are serving here are doing so with a true good faith. I'm not interested in violence. I didn't want to come shoot guns or whatever, but I see a duty to my country that I'm fulfilling. And yet it's shaped by this,
media.
The classic like redneck hick gun-toting, nationalistic psycho that you see in the American film or, other depictions.
I think that's totally right. Our perception of what goes on in the military is almost exclusively shaped by cinema and TV, because we don't. I mean, just by virtue of the fact that they are the military.
We haven't signed up, yeah.
They're very strict on what goes in and out of that. And so we only really have those. And what this movie, and I know I keep raving about it, what Warfare did so well, it starts, you just kind of see, you get a glimpse into like how boring it can be just waiting around, in the army, just waiting around for your target to show up. Did that beautifully. But then it also, just to your point before, when you're getting that kind of broader context in films, which you usually do, the bureaucratic decision making and the high level planning, that can tend to get into like hoorah territory, and we're on the right side of history. What this film Warfare did so well was that it didn't give you anything. It told you the time, it told you the place, it told you it was a true story, but it didn't give you any of the context. And basically what you're left with then is just all right, these are soldiers doing a job, and there was no politics in it, and it was really amazing. And you also see a glimpse of like they take over an Afghani a family household, and you're getting their experience as well.
Perception of it.
It just really, really turned me on. Not in a sexual way.
I'll have to look it out.
Yeah, if anyone's listening, it's not getting a wide release, but go see it at the cinema, because I don't know if it's a home watch at all.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I've got a new segment.
Oh,
you want to do that?
I love it.
I will write a jingle for this straight after this. So, and I don't have a name. Maybe you can help me out with a name. But this is my new segment. It's basically a hot takes. It could be hot takes, but it's basically a rip off of the Subway takes. You seen this Subway takes thing?
Yeah.
We just give a hot take and then see what you think. This is probably a repackaging of a lot of other.
I was going to say, I'm just going through the mental list of all of your other segments.
Yeah.
It's very not simple. A myth. It's not a fact. Michael's facts? It's not a Michael's facts. Okay.
Yeah,
maybe this is a slightly different niche to some.
This is my dream.
It's not about George Clooney.
The final form of this podcast is just going to be all segments, and we won't even have enough time to actually get to the segment. It's just going to be all jingles back to back to back to back to back to back, and then call, and then end. Anyway, okay. So I'll write a jingle. So this is all right. We don't know what this is called yet.
Yeah, but I look forward to listening to it now.
That's a spicy meatball!
All right, so this is my hot take, Nick. I don't think there should be any bathrooms in the office that aren't just cubicles that can only be used by one person at a time. So I don't think that there should be I don't think you should have to go in to a urinal and run the risk of standing next to some Frank from the office who you kind of know, but now that you're just trying not to look at his dick. I don't think you should.
Wait, that's your problem?
I got more. This is later.
No, I'm just saying that. Yeah, how often are you feeling like you need to look or not look at his dick?
When you're standing next to him in the urinal. Like, why is this even an option?
No, but why are you feeling like that there's this big pressure to how much of your natural inclination would be to look at his dick that you're having to fight?
I mean, this is not a homophobic or thing. Okay, don't try and spin it like that. I don't think we should be.
All I'm saying is that when I walk into a urinal, I'm not like fighting the urge, you know?
No, it's not about fighting the urge. I don't think Frank and I should be put in a situation where I even just in my peripheral vision, get a glimpse. You know, it's
What's
just
wrong
it's
with
uncouth. That? It's just weird. I don't want to even see Frank eating his sandwich because Frank has mayonnaise all in the corner of his mouth. I don't think we should be in that situation. I don't think we should be in a situation where I'm hearing someone else shit, like in a cubicle that I share an office space with.
So just to clarify, you want separate rooms for every single one. You don't want go into the bathroom and then there's cubicles. Every cubicle is its own self-contained pod.
Exactly. Or you have two, disabled bathrooms are peak bathroom to me. I always use the disabled bathrooms. They're the best ones.
We found the hot take.
There's so much. They're roomy. The mirrors. They're also those are typically cleaner because less people use them because they think, well, I shouldn't use that. Big mistake. Always use the disabled if you can, if you have the time, if it's not urgent. But this is the worst thing. Apart from the might seeing Frank's dick or might hear Frank's shit. Sorry, Frank's really copping it here. But just the awkwardness of the bathroom chit chat, even when you're washing your hands. You have to say something. You have to make a face. You're like,
you go up to the base and you're like, was just touching my dick.
Yeah, I was just touching Frank's dick before, and he's like, I am Frank.
He refers to himself in the third person.
The worst thing about this is that you have to make bathroom conversation, which I really don't appreciate. But I don't
think you do.
I know
you have to make conversation in the bathroom.
You do. I think either every person should have their own bathroom, which I know is not sustainable and probably a waste of resources. But
it's a waste of building space.
That'd be my first preference. But if that's not possible, just have multiple bathrooms where everyone has to wait and there's like a silence thing, or this wouldn't be in my preference
list.
This is
option 3,
but I will accept this. In Japan, how they have, if you're doing a poo-poo, you can play a little jingle on the thing. Not all, but they play a little to drown out the noise of the plonk or the I think they should at least have that.
I think we've just discovered that you have misophonia. Is that the one where you just don't like the sounds of other people? This is very reminiscent to at the gym when you were having to listen to other people making noises. I think we've just discovered that you're uncomfortable with other people's existence.
But it's also that, I try not to use any public bathrooms ever if I can help it. But like if you do a poo-poo in a public space and that there's someone else there, will you take any measures will you flush the toilet and then shit, or will you put down toilet papers to soften the blow of the plonk?
I just live it up, man.
Do you really though?
Live it up.
Do you? I don't believe
I have this is part of being an animal in the 21st century. We all shit. And sometimes your shit is loud and sometimes it isn't.
So if
I'm going to the bathroom, I'm just going to let it out and move on with my life.
Well, that's psychotic to me. I don't believe you, but I just think it's crazy.
You don't believe me?
I don't believe that you don't think if you're in an airport, for example.
I don't do a pre-flush and then try and drop a turd while it's flushing. That's psychotic.
I do that all the time. I also layer
Do you put down layer a piece of toilet paper there to muffle the drop?
I do. I extensively muffle. I put down too much to the point where it often clogs the toilet.
Doesn't flush.
And then I'm left with, now I have to wait for the next guy to leave because then he might pop his head in and see what was going on.
You know what, Michael? Here's my hot take. I think it's funny to hear other people shit. I do.
It is kind of funny.
I think it's funny. And if I go to the bathroom, fucking live it up. Do what you want, man. We're all just animals pretending to be sophisticated, and then we all have to go into a little box and shit on the hole, Like, just fucking, it's silly. And my hot take is Fart away. Plop away. That's my hot take. You asked for me. There it is.
Okay. Disagree.
That's why it's a hot take.
And that's what this has been Deep Foot Hot Take.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
You have a problem and you should seek medical help. Moving on to another segment. How do you feel about a little bit of science news?
I'm good about that.
Play the jingle.
It's that time. Time for science news.
Okay, so this is an article in psychiatrist.com entitled Golf Course Living Linked to Higher Parkinson's Risk. Do you see this, Michael?
You know what? This slipped my feed.
Slip through. At least half of would-be retirees want to spend their golden years on or near a golf course, but maybe that's not such a good idea. A new population-based study argues that living near golf courses could dramatically drive up one's risk of developing Parkinson's disease. The culprit? Incidental exposure to pesticides lingering in the air and seeping into the water supply. More specifically, those living within a mile of a golf course had more than twice the odds of receiving a Parkinson's diagnosis than those who lived more than 6 miles away. Finally, the connection started to fade after 3 miles, suggesting a potential threshold effect. Our results showed a clear dose-response relationship, the researchers wrote. People living closer to golf courses were at significantly greater risk for Parkinson's. Pesticides, including neurotoxins such as chlorpyrifos and maneb have long been groundskeeping mainstays because of their ability to keep the fairways and greens so well groomed. Earlier studies have shown links between chemicals like these and the development of Parkinson's. This is also connected to groundwater risk. So people whose participants whose drinking water came from groundwater service areas that included a golf course had nearly double the odds of Parkinson's compared to those living in similar regions that lacked one. Anyway, so this is an article. I'll put it in the chapter notes. You can have a read. But Michael, I feel like pesticides, Roundup, this whole category of chemicals. I think this is one of those things where in the future everyone's going to be having those conversations like, "Oh, granddad, why were you spraying all the weeds all the time? Didn't you know that?" And we're going to be like, "No, we didn't know back then that it caused all of these fucking neurological disorders." But it seems pretty clear that there are a lot of bad effects from that shit.
We've never sounded more like RFK, Nick, and I'm here for it. I gotta say.
Okay.
My folks have bought, well, they have a house on a golf course, and they used to have. This sounds very priv, but they used to have another one on another golf course.
Wow.
And it's quite funny because my mum doesn't play golf, couldn't give a fuck about golf, and so this is clearly being driven, pun intended, by my dad. And yeah, it is a weird thing because I'm not a big. I can't imagine why it would be appealing to live in a golf course. You also have balls flying around when you don't know. You also have people, strangers walking in your garden.
Yeah.
None of that is appealing to me.
No.
But pesticides, I do.
Yeah.
Kind of like.
You like them?
Nah, that was stupid. Do you ever use like Raid or Mortein to do a thing?
I'll do the occasional fly spray, but I do, I've become a bit of a, I like it just a manual swatter.
Yeah.
It feels a little fairer. Like if I can't get the guy, that's a skill issue, and I deserve to have the fly in the house.
Totally.
You know? It feels like it's cheating if you're just like spraying poison everywhere.
Yeah, I use chopsticks, as you know, but
You use chopsticks, but that's more show-offy than it needs to be.
yeah, and I'm eating them as well. But yeah, just like I hate the, and also if you spray them, they don't die immediately. They kind of spaz out for a bit, and it's just like, this seems so inhumane.
Yeah, sometimes they're spraying around like on the ground, and you're just dragging like poison all over my house.
I know. And then now we've got dogs. You have to be careful about that. But there's also got that smell that's just like, oh, this is so bad in like a really strange way. Yeah. So like chemically.
Well, I think we know as well that pesticides are like killing bees, right? Like that's what we've identified for like colony collapse disorder is pesticides and things that are being sprayed in places like golf courses, and it's just destroyed the fucking the ecosystem.
Have we talked about golf courses just being like a complete resource suck? Like how strange they are.
I don't think in huge details.
Malcolm Gladwell has this great revisionist history episode. It's called a Good Walk Ruined, which I think was a Mark Twain quote where he said golf is a good walk ruined. And he does a deep dive into the elitism of golfing as an industry, the fact that they are often on their public spaces,
public lands,
and they're heavily tax exempt. They get huge tax cuts. They're also using an incredible amount of resources and water
and everything.
Upkeep. And there's also this kind of murky line where they're not often golf courses aren't fenced off, so the public can walk through them, but it's frowned upon. It's kind of this exclusive thing. It's also very white. Typically, it's very male, and there's a real kind of weirdness to golfing, as a leisure activity.
Well, I think I can't remember. I don't think we did talk about this, but I feel like I had an article in my list for a while about the COVID lockdown era effect on golf courses, where they were unable to maintain them, right? Because they were, it was lockdown, it was inessential work. So they basically started to rewild, and there were people who had now been given access to the private golf course areas for recreational purposes in the lockdowns that would not normally be able to just go wander around on the courses. Yeah. And they were talking about the changes that they had both in terms of wildlife, in terms of, it might be the only green place in a neighborhood, but that is off limits for, 95% of the people. And now what it became when it was a fully community oriented space, how much nicer that was for everyone. Yeah. So yeah, totally right. The impacts are enormous. And I do remember seeing, there was an article somewhere about a organization who went around and bought up old golf courses. Golf courses actually kind of tricky businesses because there's a huge amount of upkeep, often a huge amount of land value, but not that much in terms of revenue unless you charge enormous fees.
Right.
So a lot of them go out of business, and there's an organization that goes around and buys golf courses explicitly to turn them back into parks and community areas, and how successful that's been. I'll find that article and I'll try and put it in the chapter notes at the moment.
Yeah.
But it was really good read and very fun before and after images as well, where it's like, oh, that used to be like, hole 9, and then they've, got rid of the sand bed and put like a wetland in and put back on, all this native flora and things. It was really cool.
Yeah. It's just it's a strange sport, isn't it? Like it doesn't require a lot of exercise. And it is.
Well, there's a decent amount of walking, but yeah, it's not like you're not sweating playing it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of more of a social sport, but like you need so much space in order to whack this ball into a little hole. Like I did play golf for a little bit, especially COVID kind of got me back into it actually, weirdly, because it was one of the few things that you could do and be outside. And I don't mind it as a sport, but it's just like it's kind of wild to think that we devote so much space to it. Like Malcolm Gladwell makes the point in this Revolutionist History podcast where he's like, imagine if like basketball courts needed that many space, like that much space.
Yeah.
You know, it's just insane.
I mean, you could argue that like a football stadium is an equivalent thing, but probably at high density levels and with much more economic turnover.
Yeah, and multiple uses. You
Yeah,
can only use
multiple
golf for
uses, that's
one
fair.
thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also on the scale, the golf courses are so much larger anyway.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. So stay away from pesticides.
And golf.
And golf. Swing and a miss. If you've enjoyed this podcast episode, thank you so much for participating. It was lovely to have you with us, and we are glad to hear that you enjoyed it. There are plenty more episodes where this came from, so scroll back down that old feed and give something a listen. You'll probably find more exciting information that you'll want to share with your friends and family. You can get in contact with us if you want to reach out and send a question or a comment. You can do so at deepfort@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. You can send us your comments on the Spotify app these days, and you can also rate us 5 stars there because that'd be really nice of you. So get on out there and share something you enjoy with the people who matter to you.
Yeah. I have... this will probably come out when, Nick? Monday or Tuesday?
Tomaz, yeah.
On this Friday, I have a song coming out. I'm launching this new music project, so I'm just going to do a plug here. I have a new music project called Slow Mons, and I have a remix coming out on Friday. Go along to Spotify. Follow me on Spotify and Instagram. I don't know why I have an Instagram, but whatever. But yeah, it's exciting. And I'll have another song coming out in the next few weeks. And support local artists, guys, okay?
Yeah, buy local, you know?
Yeah.
I'm very excited for you. I have heard the track. It is very good. I am excited that it is coming out.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing what's coming.
Yeah. It's a bit scary, but it's nice. I haven't
Scary?
released... Scary to launch, but like, it's when it was it's basically 10 years, almost 10 years to the day actually that we released that Brokers album, because it was 2015 in May.
Resettler.
It actually will be almost exactly to the day 10 years. That is weird.
Wow.
Yeah, so it is a little bit scary. It's just putting yourself out there is strange, and also it's not like part of a band. It's just me. And I don't know how to promote, but you have to promote, and I don't know. And I also don't know what I want out of this. Like, I don't necessarily, when I was doing Brokers, I wanted, there's a part of me that definitely wanted more like attention or something like on it. Like, it was more of a concern. And I'm not even sure, like, I still want to like put some effort into, promoting the work I'm doing. But like, I don't know, it's just, it's a bit icky.
Do you feel like if this was... I'm not saying this dismissively, but you have a lot else that you're doing in your life right now, and this is sort of like a fun new hobby almost on the side a little bit. Do you feel like that gives it the freedom to not... like, you're not feeling that pressure on yourself for it to be such a huge... to get that reception that you want, versus when, you were 20-something, you were still studying, or, not really on the career path that you knew about yet, and maybe music was the thing that was going to be the thing, like, does that, the passage of that time and the fact that it's perhaps a little bit to the side, does that give you a little bit more mental breathing room, or are you still putting pressure on yourself? That's
a good question. It's one I've been thinking about. I think it might have an element to it in terms of like having other stuff going on. I think it has more to do with age and maturity. I think I got lucky with Brokers a little bit, that I think one of the first songs I put out was also a remix, and then it just happened at the time. It was probably just easier to get Triple J play, and then I put out another remix and it got Triple J play, and then I was like, well, I'll make this a band. And yeah, probably once I had that initial, it was like very mild, so it felt like a success to me that it was like the first 2 things I put out got Triple J playing.
Got
I was
airplay,
like,
yeah.
I think this is my thing, and
Yeah.
then you get let into bars and stuff. Like it was just very easy, I think, in a sense, to let that go to your head in Adelaide. And I think I actually think I'm putting more effort into the music now. Like it's way more considered. I would
Really? You spend a lot. Well, I mean, you tell me, but I feel like you put a lot of consideration into.
I think I have a lot more skills now, especially with just
That's definitely
production.
true.
And it's also, I think in terms of arranging, I think that was weirdly just an afterthought for me because I was working out how to use Ableton at the same time that I was working out how to compose. It was kind of all new, and I was just kind of and it was, like I said to you in the past, like I look back at some of it now, I'm like, this is spaghetti thrown at the wall a little bit. Like it's not lyrically, it's not super. So I think I'm taking a lot more care in that sort of stuff. And also with, the like album, I was insistent that the album that we did went out as an album, and I'm still proud of that album, but for a band that nobody knows about, it's kind of just insane just from a marketing strategy point of view that you could just put out an album and expect anyone to care. So I think now I'm just spending a lot more time on working on individual songs and then putting that out, seeing how that goes.
But that was a different time as well, right? Like streaming wasn't a thing in the same way that it was. Like you can't really retro judge that. Like it has been a decade of the album effectively slowly disappearing, right? Like I mean, in the sense that the algorithm has made it such that singles are more valuable and that a slow drip feed has become more valuable and marketable than an album release used to be, right?
Sure.
I don't think that you can retroactively look back at that and be like, oh, we did it wrong, because actually at the time it probably wasn't as distinct a difference, and that there was probably more of we do a single and we play some gigs and then the album comes out. Like I think that was a more traditional time.
That's right, but there is definitely a sense of romanticism about, no, this needs to be an album. Like it's kind of a self-importance kind of thing back then. And the weird thing is now, like I want to take care of it. I'm not aiming to get any. I'm not aiming to, be a big music artist. So this is not even on my radar. I just enjoy the process,
the love of the
so
game.
much, and it's what I absolutely love to do. And if one person heard it, it wouldn't change it. But there is also a part of you, obviously, that when you put in so much work and you think, I think this is good, that you're like, well, I owe it to myself, I guess, a little bit to just at least try and put it out there a little bit,
Yeah. Well, and it'll be great. I mean, as you say, you have like an extra decade's worth of knowledge, experience, plus technology. Like how much faster are our computers? How much more sophisticated is the mixing you can do yourself versus previously you'd have to send it off to a, external someone to do it. Like the advances in every aspect of it are significant.
You're so right. And actually, when I was doing the broken stuff and I had a MacBook, it was so slow. It would take me an hour sometimes to render out just like a version of the song, and then I'd listen back to it and hear a mistake and I'd be like,
fuck, yeah. God.
And now it happens in 10 seconds. And so I'm just constantly going,
iterate. Yeah.
Yeah. So you are right. But anyway, go.
Sorry. Just some news coming in from the producers. Yes. Fact checked. Unfortunately, Resettler came out in December 2015. It was Meiosis that came out in May of 2013, 12 years ago.
Wow. Thank you for the fact checking.
Just put it out on the record. Sorry, they've been in my ear for this whole segment. So just nice to get that cleared up.
Yeah, that Meiosis EP came out the same week as Daft Punk's Random Access Memories, and I genuinely said to someone at one point, so annoying. Daft Punk. Oh, what are the chances that Random
Fucking-
Access
what a-
Memories would come out the same week as Meiosis?
To be fair, I barely listen to that album anymore. So, I think with the test of time, you came out ahead.
Yeah.
I just looked at the credits as well. I forgot that Felix was credited as a part of Brokers for Meiosis.
Yeah, I'll have to get rid of that.
Yeah. Anyway, well, given that we've talked about it so much, how about we just play a little bit to wrap us up this week? Why not? Well, Michael, why don't you introduce it?
This is a remix of a song by a guy called Beaks called Motel Maybe. Go listen to that song, Motel Maybe by
It's
Beaks.
a great song,
It's a lovely little folky kind of Beatlesque kind of song, harmonies. But this is my trip-hoppy kind of down-tempo remix of this.
Listen for it on Friday. We'll catch you next week. Bye.
Touchdown to meet me. I don't even know your name. We've been here before. With 5 years left to change. Tell me a sorrow. Pick me your lights. I can see. Pick me your lights. Thinking in the dark. We're winding a maze. That's the way. We're winding a maze.